Welcome to an unprecedented look at our legal system. What you are about to witness is completely unfiltered and unedited. Prepare yourself for raw, authentic footage captured directly from the front lines of justice, where truth is the only objective.
Step back from the edge. Let me see ID. Now.
802 like everyone else.
In the bag. Where you headed?
Work documents. I'm gonna turn.
The platform clock above the tracks flickered from 7:58 a.m. to 7:59 a.m. The sound of steel wheels grinding somewhere underground echoed through the station, mixing with the low murmur of commuters and the sharp hiss of a departing train. A tall black man stood near the yellow safety line, one hand wrapped around a worn leather briefcase, the other scrolling calmly on his phone. He wore a gray coat, nothing expensive, nothing flashy. Just another man waiting for the morning train. "You need to step away from the platform edge," the voice cut in. Sharp, commanding. The man looked up. A uniformed police officer stood less than 3 feet away, hand resting near his belt, eyes locked on him. "I am standing where everyone else is standing," the man said quietly. The officer did not answer the point. He leaned forward slightly, invading the space. "Where are you headed? What is in the bag?" Around them, the station kept breathing. A woman adjusted her scarf. Someone dropped coins. The loudspeaker announced delays on the northbound line. The man straightened his back. "I am waiting for the 8:02 train," he said. "The briefcase holds work documents." The officer's jaw tightened. He glanced at the briefcase, then back at the man's face. "Identification. Now." This was the moment when a normal morning bent into something else. The man did not raise his voice. He did not argue. He reached slowly into his coat and handed over his ID. The officer studied it longer than necessary. His eyes narrowed, not in recognition, but in suspicion. "What exactly do you do for work?" The question hung heavy, louder than the trains. "I am an attorney," the man answered. The officer let out a short breath through his nose. "An attorney waiting for a train at this hour, dressed like this." He handed the ID back but did not step away. Instead, he shifted his stance, blocking the man's path down the platform. People nearby began to notice. One man paused mid-step. A teenager raised her phone just a little higher. The man glanced around, then back at the officer. "Am I being detained?" he asked. The question was calm, measured, practiced. The officer's eyes flickered. "You are being investigated," he said. "Investigated for what?" The officer did not respond right away. The pause stretched. The sounds of the station seemed to dull, as if the air itself was listening. Finally, the officer spoke. "Suspicious behavior." The words landed with weight but no substance. The man looked down at the yellow line, then back up. "I am standing waiting for a train like everyone else here," he said. His voice never rose. But something in the crowd shifted. A woman shook her head. Someone whispered, "This is not right." The officer felt it too. The attention, the phones, the quiet judgment forming in the space behind him. Instead of stepping back, he stepped forward. "Sir, keep your hands where I can see them." The train roared into the station, wind rushing past, drowning out everything else. And in that moment, as steel screamed against steel, a simple wait for public transportation crossed an invisible line and became a confrontation that would soon shake an entire city. The man on the platform had learned long ago how to stand still without shrinking. His name was Daniel Reeves, though no one at the station knew it yet. At 44 years old, he had built a habit of calm that came from years of rooms where every word mattered. Courtrooms, interview rooms, conference tables where careers and freedom were decided sentence by sentence. That calm was not natural, it was trained. Daniel grew up on the east side of the city in a row house with peeling paint and sirens that sang him to sleep most nights. His mother worked double shifts as a hospital cleaner. His father disappeared before Daniel learned to write his name. By 14, Daniel had watched 3 friends get arrested, 2 get convicted, and 1 disappear into a system that never sent letters back. He learned early how easily a label could replace a person. School was his exit plan, not because he loved it, but because it was quiet. Books did not interrupt him. Teachers did not cross the street to avoid him. A guidance counselor once told him, law was not realistic, said the debt would bury him. Daniel smiled, thanked her, and filled out the applications anyway. He worked nights. He borrowed. He graduated tired and focused. Law school sharpened him. He learned how power sounded when it thought it was unquestioned. He learned how authority hid behind procedure. After passing the bar, he joined the public prosecutor's office, the place most of his classmates avoided. The pay was low. The hours were brutal. But it put him where the damage was happening. He prosecuted violent crime. He also declined bad cases. He refused shortcuts. He angered police unions by dismissing arrests built on thin suspicion and thicker bias. Over 2 decades, Daniel built a reputation quietly. He won cases. He lost some. He rewrote office policies. He required body camera review. He charged officers who crossed lines others pretended not to see. When the city appointed him chief prosecutor, it was called historic and controversial in the same headline. Daniel did not celebrate. He went back to work the next morning. The officer on the platform had his own history. Officer Mark Harlan was 38, 10 years into the force, a fixture on transit patrol. He believed in order. He believed chaos started small. His file held complaints, not enough to end a career, enough to form a pattern no one connected. Stops that went long, questions that went nowhere, words like uncooperative, written beside names that never matched his own. Supervisors described him as proactive. Community feedback called him aggressive. Mark saw himself as vigilant. He had been told to trust his instincts. He did. Especially in crowded places. Especially during rush hour. Especially when something did not fit the picture in his head. That morning, both men carried their pasts onto the same concrete platform. One carried decades of restraint learned the hard way. The other carried a badge and a belief that he could read danger on sight. Neither knew the other's story, but both were about to collide with the consequences of theirs. The train doors slid open and shut again, releasing a wave of warm air and impatient bodies onto the platform. Daniel stayed where he was. The officer did not move either. The moment stretched, then bent under the weight of watching eyes. Officer Harlan tilted his head slightly as if reassessing an object from a new angle. "Open the briefcase," he said. Daniel looked at the bag, then back at the officer. "On what grounds?" The question was quiet. It did not challenge. It requested clarity. Harlan's lips pressed into a thin line. "You are refusing a lawful order." Around them, the crowd tightened. A man in a business suit slowed his pace. A woman with earbuds pulled one side free. 2 phones were now clearly raised. "I am not refusing," Daniel said. "I am asking you to articulate the legal basis for a search." The words were familiar, practiced. Harlan felt them like a tap against glass. He had heard them before, usually later, usually in reports. He did not like hearing them now out loud with witnesses. "Sir, this does not need to be difficult," Harlan said. "You fit a description." Daniel's eyebrows lifted slightly. "A description of what?" "Suspicious individual loitering near the platform edge." Daniel glanced down. The yellow line was at his feet. He had not crossed it. He had not moved. "I have been standing here for 12 minutes, he said. "Like everyone else?" The crowd murmured. A woman spoke without realizing it. "He is right." Harlan shot her a look. She looked away but did not leave. Authority wavered when it noticed itself being observed. Harlan shifted his weight. His hand hovered closer to his radio now. Daniel reached slowly into his coat again. Not for the briefcase, for a folded card. He held it between 2 fingers. "My name is Daniel Reeves," he said. "I am the chief prosecutor for this city." The words did not land immediately. Harlan's face did not change. He glanced at the card barely, then waved it away. "Anyone can print a card," he said. That sentence drew something sharp from the crowd. A low sound. Disbelief mixed with anticipation. The phones did not lower. Daniel nodded once as if expecting that response. "That is why verification exists," he said. "Call it in." Harlan hesitated. The pause was small but visible, long enough for doubt to enter, long enough for the wrong choice to still be corrected. Instead, he straightened. Sir, you are being detained until we sort this out. He reached for Daniel's arm. The moment slowed. Fingers closed around fabric. The briefcase tilted, knocking softly against Daniel's leg. A woman gasped. Someone said, "Hey!" Daniel did not pull away. He turned his head slightly so his voice carried. "I am not resisting," he said. "And every camera here is watching you." The second officer arrived too late to stop what had already begun. And as the next train thundered into the station, drowning out reason and retreat, the crowd understood something instinctively. This was no longer about a train. It was about power refusing to recognize itself in the mirror. Officer Harlan's grip tightened. Not violently, not yet. Just enough pressure to make the message clear. Daniel felt the fabric of his coat pull against his shoulder, the briefcase slipping from his fingers. It hit the concrete with a dull sound that cut through the station noise, sharper than a shout. "Turn around," Harlan said. The words landed heavy. Final. Daniel did not argue. He did not rush. He turned slowly, deliberately, every movement measured. Time seemed to stretch. The screech of the arriving train blurred into a long, metallic cry. Wind pushed dust and old paper along the platform floor. Somewhere close, a phone camera clicked into focus. "Put your hands behind your back," Daniel complied. His wrists met. Cold air touched skin. Then the sound. A sharp metallic snap. The handcuffs closed. The echo of steel on steel rang louder than it should have, bouncing off tiled walls, lodging itself into memory. A woman near the pillar covered her mouth. Someone whispered his God. Daniel exhaled once through his nose. He stared straight ahead. His jaw was tight, but his posture stayed upright. He did not sag. He did not plead. The cuffs bit slightly into his wrists as Harlan adjusted them, not cruelly, but without care. To Harlan, this was procedure. To the crowd, it was something else entirely. "What is he being arrested for?" a man asked. No answer came. Harlan guided Daniel forward, one hand firm between his shoulder blades. Each step was slow. The yellow safety line passed beneath Daniel's shoes. The platform lights flickered as the train doors opened behind them. People did not board. They stood frozen, watching a man in handcuffs walk past them for the crime of waiting. As they moved toward the stairs, Daniel spoke again, voice low but steady. "Officer, you are making a serious mistake." Harlan said nothing. His eyes were forward now. The moment to stop had passed. The moment to rethink had slipped behind him like a closing door. In the patrol room above ground, the air changed. Quieter. Thicker. The hum of fluorescent lights replaced the roar of trains. Harlan removed Daniel's briefcase from the evidence bag and set it aside without opening it. The cuffs stayed on. Daniel sat. His shoulders remained square. His eyes tracked everything. Harlan filled out a form, pen scratching paper. Suspicious behavior. Failure to comply. Investigation pending. Each word felt smaller than the weight it tried to carry. A second officer glanced at Daniel, then at the name on the ID again. His brow furrowed. He stepped out of the room without a word. Minutes passed, then footsteps. Faster. Heavier. A supervisor entered, face already tense. He looked at Daniel, then at the paperwork, then back at the cuffs. His voice dropped. "Say his name again." "Daniel Reeves," the second officer said quietly. "City Chief Prosecutor." The room went still. Harlan's pen stopped mid-stroke. The supervisor closed his eyes for half a second, then opened them. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of consequences. The supervisor did not raise his voice. He did not need to. He stepped closer to Daniel, close enough to see the faint red marks forming beneath the cuffs. He took in the calm posture, the controlled breathing, the eyes that were not pleading. He had seen this look before, usually from people who knew exactly what came next. "Remove the cuffs," the supervisor said. Harlan hesitated. Just long enough to register disbelief. "Sir, we still need to verify." The supervisor cut him off with a look that carried years of command. "Verification is already happening." Now, the keys came out. The metallic scrape sounded different this time. Quieter. Heavier. The cuffs opened. Daniel rolled his wrists once, slowly feeling blood return. He did not thank anyone. He stood. The supervisor cleared his throat. "Mr. Reeves, I am Captain Lowell. There has been a misunderstanding. Daniel met his eyes. A misunderstanding implies confusion, Daniel said. This was certainty without cause. The words landed clean. No anger, no volume, just accuracy. A phone rang on the desk behind them. Lowell answered it himself. Yes. Yes, he is here. Pause. Longer this time. Understood. He hung up and looked at Harlan. You detained the chief prosecutor of this city on a transit platform during rush hour, Lowell said. On what legal basis? Harlan opened his mouth, closed it. His shoulders sank slightly. Suspicious behavior, he said again, but the phrase had lost its shape. It sounded thin in the room. Daniel picked up his briefcase. He set it on the table and opened it himself. Inside were neatly organized files, a legal pad filled with handwritten notes, and a court access badge clipped to the inside pocket. He turned it so everyone could see. Silence followed. Not shock. Recognition. Lowell rubbed his temple. This is going to require documentation, he said. Daniel nodded. I will require copies of everything, Daniel replied. Incident reports, body camera footage, station surveillance, names and badge numbers of every officer involved. And I will require them today. Harlan stared at the floor now. The weight had arrived. It settled into the room, into his chest, into the realization that this moment would not fade. It would not be managed. It would not be explained away. Outside on the platform below, the crowd had dispersed, but the phones were still working. Videos were already uploading. Captions were being written. The story had left the station before Daniel did. And by the time he walked out into the daylight calm and unescorted, the city was already beginning to understand what had just been revealed. By noon, the video had escaped the station and outrun every attempt to slow it down. 30 seconds of footage. Daniel standing still. Officer Harlan closing the distance. The briefcase dropping. The handcuffs clicking shut. Uploaded first without context, then with names, then with headlines. Each repost sharpened the outrage. By mid-afternoon, millions had seen it. By evening, no one in City Hall was pretending this was contained. Daniel did not give interviews that day. He went back to his office and did what he always did when systems failed. He documented. His civil rights attorney arrived before lunch. The complaint was drafted with precision. Unlawful detention. Unlawful arrest. Violation of constitutional protections. Abuse of authority. The names were spelled correctly. The timestamps matched the video down to the second. The city responded with statements before it responded with action. We are reviewing the incident. We take these matters seriously. The language was familiar. It did not slow the pressure. The Transit Authority released station footage. Multiple angles, no threat, no resistance, no justification. Commentators paused the video frame by frame. Former prosecutors explained the law. Retired officers shook their heads. Internal affairs moved faster than usual. Officer Harlan was placed on administrative leave within 48 hours. His record was pulled. The complaints that had once sat separately now lined up. Patterns became impossible to ignore when they were finally placed side by side. The union issued a cautious defense, then went quiet. Protests followed, but they were not chaotic. They were focused. People gathered at the station with signs that showed screenshots from the video. Waiting is not a crime. Standing is not suspicious. Authority does not excuse bias. City Council called emergency sessions. The police chief faced questions he could not redirect. 3 weeks later, the findings were released. Policy violations confirmed. Training failures acknowledged. Officer Harlan was terminated for cause. His badge surrendered, his appeal withdrawn. The city settled the lawsuit before trial. The number was never announced officially, but it was large enough to be felt in the budget. Daniel donated his portion to legal aid organizations that represented people without cameras, without titles, without leverage. Reforms followed not all at once, but publicly. Transit stop guidelines rewritten. Mandatory supervisor approval for prolonged detentions. Real-time review of body camera footage. The city promised change because the city had been forced to look. Daniel returned to court the following Monday. Same gray coat, same briefcase. He stood before a jury and spoke about evidence, not about himself. Outside, the station carried on. Trains arrived, people waited. but the memory lingered. A moment when power met its reflection and could not look away. What happened on that platform was not a misunderstanding. It was a textbook example of how authority can drift outside the law when unchecked. Under the Fourth Amendment, a police officer cannot detain a person without reasonable and articulable suspicion that a specific crime is occurring. Standing on a public transit platform, waiting for a scheduled train carrying a briefcase, does not meet that standard. Suspicion without facts is not suspicion under the law. It is bias wearing a uniform. The moment Officer Harlan demanded identification without cause, the encounter crossed from observation into seizure. When he blocked Daniel's movement and ordered compliance, the detention was complete. When the handcuffs closed, it became an arrest. Every step required legal justification. None existed. Courts have ruled this repeatedly in clear language for decades. The law is not unclear. It is ignored. This case also exposes how bias operates quietly. There were no slurs, no shouting, just assumptions. The belief that something did not fit. That belief guided every decision that followed, filtering out evidence that contradicted it. Credentials were dismissed. Calm was interpreted as defiance. Knowledge of rights was treated as threat. Bias does not need anger to be dangerous. It only needs confidence. For the public, there are lessons here that matter. If you are stopped, remain calm. Ask clearly if you are being detained. Ask for the legal basis. Do not resist physically, if it is safe and legal in your state record. Say out loud that you are not resisting. Witnesses matter. Cameras matter. Documentation turns moments into accountability. For officers, the lesson is simpler and harder. Authority is not instinct. It is responsibility. Training does not excuse violation. Habit does not override law. When a situation feels uncertain, that is the moment to slow down, not escalate. Ego is not a tool. It is a liability. Daniel Reeves did not seek to become a symbol. He became one because the system forced him into that role. His position gave him protection others do not have. That is the point. Justice should not depend on title, education, or knowing the right words. It should depend on law being followed every time for everyone. The question now belongs to the public. How many similar moments never surface? How many end quietly without video, without lawyers, without consequences? If this story made you uncomfortable, it should. Discomfort is often the first sign that truth has arrived. What you do with it is the part that matters.
Welcome back. We are here to relentlessly pursue the truth and hold those in power accountable. Because while words can be twisted, the records simply do not lie. Thank you for joining us today.